And so we want to make these applications first-class citizens. It's not uncommon for me to have conversations with people, and you talk to the identity team, and they just don't even pay much attention to these applications because before Strata, you couldn't do anything with them. They were unprotectable in most modern environments without rewriting the application or doing really some kind of unnatural act. And so what we allow you to do is make them first class citizens in your organization so they get protected in the exact same way you want all of your other applications protected.
Well, this is great. Tell you what, without further ado, we've seen how simple we suggest it's going to be. Let's take a look at actually cooking. Time to jump into the kitchen and actually get cooking.
You bet. So let me go ahead and segue into the actual live demonstration here. Going to the wrong browser, my apologies. So here we've got an application today that, as you see, it has its own native login form, and this is just how the application was built. If I were to go ahead and put in a username and password here, it would go directly to the LDAP as you would expect, kind of in that before picture. But what we've done now is we're actually going to have our orchestrator sit in front of it. So now I'm routing through our proxy. Doesn't matter if that proxy natively exists on the web server or upstream. We're pretty happy either way. But by policy, we're going to say we're going to redirect you to enter ID for authentications to make sure that you are indeed who you say you are. And then we sign in. And now what we have the ability to do is we natively get into the application. I know these types of demonstrations go awfully quickly, but there's really a lot of things that went on in the background to make this successful. Certainly, we sat in the policy in the user journey so that we authenticated the user properly. But when it came time to that last sub-second where the user actually needs to get into the application, they don't even see the web form anymore. They don't see any credentials getting injected because it's all done by us. We do that at the orchestration layer, so the user doesn't even know that any of this happens. And more importantly, the application doesn't know either. So we can make it much, much, much simpler to adopt these applications into your modern infrastructure.
Interesting. And actually, this is a great point. Ira just asked a question about we talked about, I guess, the other attributes that might be in LDAP. How do you bring in other user attributes from LDAP?
Great question. So that's one of the native benefits of the orchestration fabric is that since we abstract away everything, we don't have to go if the information that's necessary for the application to work well doesn't exist in your identity provider. It exists in your HR platform or a directory somewhere else or a database or wherever it naturally wants to live. We just go get it at the sub-second that it's needed. We bundle that up, and then we give it to the application in the way that it expects it. Sometimes that application might expect it in the form of a header, maybe all kinds of different ways. There's lots of different patterns for applications to do those things. In this pattern, it's probably going to come back with the application says, now I know I've got a user that is authenticated and authorized. Let's learn more about them, about group memberships or roles or attributes or whatever it may be. And then through that LDAP channel, they'll query our orchestration engine, and we'll go get the information wherever it natively wants to exist. Great question, Ira. Thank you.
That's great. So then I see what we're saying there is this may not always be a deprecation story where you're completely getting rid of LDAP. You may actually still maintain it for these additional bits of information.
That's really up to our customer for that. We're kind of fond that we're not in the business of telling anybody how to do their business. If they want to deprecate it, certainly we'd explore that conversation and help. If they don't want to, fantastic. Let it endure. That's perfect.
Great. Well, earlier we were talking about protecting these LDAP applications, and kind of the general assumption, and as we described in the intro, was how do you protect an LDAP app with your favorite cloud IDP, your favorite modern IDP that you're using? Sometimes people are looking to add MFA, passkeys, passwordless to these legacy apps as well. That's just as simple as the flow we just witnessed.
It's actually even easier, Mark. So what we can do in that pattern is sometimes you don't want single sign-on into an application. We actually just have a customer that just joined up with us, and they have an application that is accessed by their employees, by their customers, and by business partners all together. And it would be unfeasible, at least for that organization, to put all of those identities in their identity provider because it's spanning so many different groups. So we can actually just sit in front of that application. And once we know And once we know the user has successfully logged into the application, then we can trigger a multi-factor authentication event. Maybe that's an SMS message. That could be an email one-time password token. That could be all kinds of different patterns based on what the organization uniquely needs. But the idea here is that you can quickly, easily, and surgically modernize those and satisfy those needs for MFA across all of your applications.